welcome everybody, and thank you very much for, again, turning out 7:30 in the morning here. I just have to press the start button. Thank you very much, everyone, for turning out so early in the morning, and I hope you had a great time at the concert last night, and everyone's kind of fresh and energized. Our subject this morning, as you can see and as you, on the board there, is that we're going to discuss taking cloud computing, the implementation of computing that you have from your phase one, which hopefully you're all at the moment, onto the next stage. What is it that you have to do? What things do you face moving on from phase one to phase two? All right. And again, the safe harbor statement that you've seen all week, if we mention any products which are not available yet, you can't use them in any decisions that you make, which is great at a conference like this, isn't it? Because all we're talking about is products that that you're looking forward to seeing. The profile of everybody in this audience will hopefully be that you have implemented phase one of your application, and that you're now saying, right, we're going to say, where can we get the funding from? What should be the phase two we go into? How do we set about it? What changes do we have to make in our approach in order to improve our footprint and move things forward? Alternatively, you could have just seen who our speakers were today and thought, wow, I'd like to hear people from the New York Times and from Sprint speak at 7:30 in the morning. And that would be a good reason to be here as well. Okay. So with that, let me introduce my guests to you. On my right here, we have Tara House from the New York Times. And so Tara is a 17-year veteran with the New York Times, and she's currently responsible for all the operations, all the ad sales operations that take place, and she manages the Salesforce instance within New York Times. She also tells me that she's a Six Sigma specialist. She's a Six Sigma green belt. I don't know what that means, so hopefully when she gets up, she'll tell us what a Six Sigma green belt is and if it's something we should be scared of. All right, but she's been 17 years in the industry, and prior to being at New York Times, she worked for Newsday in Long Island. All right. Our second speaker is Paul Ide from Sprint Nextel. So Paul has been 14 years at Sprint, so again a long time veteran of the telecom industry, and he's worked in various roles in sales and sales management during that time. And for the last 8 years, basically, he's been working in tools and operations, and was responsible, part of the team responsible for the choice of Salesforce in the move and the merger between Sprint and Nextel. And Paul tells me that one of his key drivers in the way he moves forward with the tools that they choose is in the rationalization of the applications that they have, and basically using Salesforce to reduce the number of applications, make things more efficient, and save the company large amounts of money. And so that will be the kind of theme of Paul's presentation. So my first slide is up. But before we start, I just wanted to have a couple of words with you, because if you're sitting there thinking about phase two, you might be thinking about, what is this phase two he's talking about? I mean, we had enough trouble getting financing for phase one. Where are we going to get financing for phase two? How does that happen? Well, there is some good news for those of you who are thinking along those lines. And the good news is that although global spending on IT has been going down or has been hit quite hard by the recession in the last 12 months, according to Gartner, CRM is faring pretty well in that respect. And they're expecting a total growth of about 6% in CRM spending this year. So when you're going back to get budgets for your phase two of Salesforce, you can say, but CRM spending is growing by 6%, Mike said, so there must be some money in the budget somewhere. Well, that probably won't work, but it's just a nice thought to have, that there is a positive feeling in the marketplace, and it is something that we're seeing happen. The main difference, though, I think that we were finding this year is that the spending, rather than in the past, was all on growth and customer acquisition. I mean, it tends to be now on cost saving and customer retention. I'm sure you're seeing that particularly in the media industry. And so the kind of projects which make a good phase two project will usually have that kind of target attached around it. However, another piece of good news is for the third consecutive year, the software as a service delivery of SFA is at the top of the pops, the top of the list for applications that are being attempted in the CRM space. This list here is also a Gartner list, and it shows you the projects which are the top 10 projects, most popular projects in the 3 areas of CRM, which is sales, service, and marketing. All right? And let's just, it's a lot of words, so let's just highlight the things that I think are interesting. Both at the top of the list of sales and customer service is moving to a SaaS approach for the delivery, to a cloud-based approach for those services, as being the thing which is most interesting for companies, for CIOs to spend money on these days. And that's good news for us at Salesforce, and it's also good news for you, having your phase 1 in place and hoping to move on with that. It also, if we're in the customer service area, you can notice that the items which are at the top of the list on the service side are many of the things that we've been hearing about this week at Dreamforce. Users of Salesforce are very poised to move well in the direction which the marketplace is going, and hopefully it means that we've read things correctly. But if you are in the position of saying, yeah, Mike, that's great, but we still don't really have a budget, what are we going to do? Gartner has some, I've been doing my research, haven't I, here? Gartner also has some recommendations for what you can do to move forward in CRM with low-cost strategies. And this is a little list that I pulled off one of their papers, which I thought was quite interesting. And this is their view of how not to spend anything, but to move forward. And just quickly looking at this, you can see the top one, of course, is social computing, which we hear a lot about everywhere we look, is to get involved in social computing. It tends to be free. It tends to be easy to get involved in. And people are seeing great value in that. Also, if you're into phase 2, hopefully you've got lots of analytics from phase 1. So make use of those analytics. In many cases, if you've been gathering statistics for a year, you've got a lot of valuable information that can be used and probably isn't being used in the best way. So take the time that's available and revisit analytics. Customer segmentation is also something that Gartner recommend. Take a look at the marketplace, see if your marketplace has changed, and if there's anything you can do to change the way in which you get your salespeople to deliver the products, or the way in which you view your customer base. And you all recognize the fourth one as being something which is very familiar in organizations who have moved into CRM. Often the first CRM project kind of gave people systems, but the people changing the way in which processes work is very hard to get people to do. And so perhaps you have in place a system which is working, but the broken processes which you're trying to replace were never fixed. And this is a great time to revisit those processes and say, can we change the way we're doing things, and have that be our phase 2. And then the final one, which all the customers that I'm working with are well aware of, is that as soon as there's a downturn in the economy, what do? Everyone reorganizes, all right? So I'm sure you're all going through some kind of reorganization in your companies at the moment. And hopefully those are to the positive in terms of taking the organization and moving it more to a customer organization rather than a product organization. Those are another way in which you can move things forward, get more people focused in better ways. Right, so let's get on to our main subject then, and we're talking about moving on with a cloud computing implementation. And I think one of the things we'll see as a theme of our two speakers this morning is that the way in which phase 1 and phase 2 differ in their character is that phase 1, particularly in cloud computing, tends to be one of the people involved are the pioneers. They're the ones going out, keeping the fingers crossed, hoping they made the right decision, hoping the cost savings come in, but basically looking for building up credibility within the organization that this is a valid solution. And hopefully it's worked very well. There's been lots of cost savings, and the popularity of cloud computing has increased. So what phase 2 now becomes is working on that, on the benefits of the initial project and extending the footprint of the cloud computing application that's put in place. And we'll hear about several different ways in which the footprint can be increased. So this is a fairly logical, obvious slide, but it's a nice way of thinking about categorizing the direction that you can move in. The first that I've got at the top is obviously just extend the functionality. We have our people using the cloud applications. Let's just improve the functionality. Let's look at what we missed in phase 1, and let's get it into phase 2. All right, so that can be done by adding new features, or obviously if you're using Salesforce applications, the App Exchange is a great place to go and look for new applications that perhaps you can just press the button and get for free on your instance. The second one, obviously, on the left is to extend the audience, include a new group, extend to a new division. Go for you've got 3 or 4 different sales groups. Let's move into different areas, and that can often be done without actually changing much of the functionality. The one on the right, I think, is very interesting. I mean, when you were doing phase 1 of an application, often integration was left out. It was, well, we'll think about that next time. So perhaps now, moving into phase 2, is the time to think about what benefits can we really get from intelligently integrating with our back-end systems. Knowing how we're using the system, how can we do that most effectively and for the least cost? And then finally, the other big theme that we like to push a lot, obviously, with Salesforce is if you've got the cloud platform from Salesforce, you're just using it for CRM, you have a great opportunity to take that platform and use it for many different forms of application, not just CRM, because it is a fully functional cloud platform for building new applications. So think about looking around for what those applications might be. And you'll hear some ideas from our speakers this morning as to ways in which your footprint can be extended by thinking out of the box a little bit. Perhaps reducing that IT queue that has been building up for so long and not having to wait 12, 18 months for that extended application. So with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker today, and Tara House from the New York Times. All over to you.
Morning, everybody. I hope you guys can hear me. It's pretty early. I figure most of you guys are from the East Coast or Europe, because I know I'm exhausted. I'm here to talk to you about phase 2 at our instance. We've been using the system for about 3.5 years. We have some App Exchange apps, and we've also built several of our own, and I'll talk about some of the App Exchange apps and our own apps. We launched with the New York Times, and we also own the IHT. And we brought the IHT in a little over a year after we launched. We look at it as an integrated sales force. We sell their stuff. They sell our stuff. We also integrated with SAP. It's a small integration, but nonetheless, it was challenging. And we also integrated with an internal reporting tool. And we've also, as I said, this quarter we seem to be particularly busy, and we're launching a bunch of small little apps within our instance. Phase 2 started for us after, I would say, a good year, maybe even after the IHT launch, which is just past a year of our initial launch. And the senior management noticed that we could respond to them very quickly. If they needed a change in a field, we could do it. We can move a field. We can add a workflow. We can do an email alert. We can schedule reports and things like that. And we were able to deliver it more quickly than our IT department. You know, they have to do a lot of planning. They have to do, things can only happen on certain days of the week. So it really slows things down. Usually, I will implement almost anything up to about Friday. Fridays, I won't do anything because I'm a little nervous what could happen over the weekend. Okay, so here are some of the applications that we've purchased, and we've purchased them over the years for the most part. Hoover's, you'll notice I've got a theme here. Everything is going to say, you know, who requested it, and then why is it successful for us. Whoops, sorry about that. This was requested by a vice president. They really wanted to get some information about public companies. Hoover's is wonderful with public companies. There's less information about private companies because they simply don't have to release it. We decided, you know, the recession was starting. The newspaper industry is in this sort of cyclical decline, unfortunately. And we decided we're only going to give logons to our administrators. But we've got the links in there. And you can see on the bottom there, that's actually part of our account tab. And there are those 3 links. We've done training with the staff to explain this is the kind of information you can get. So when they want something, they contact us. And we sit with them either at their desk or they come to our desk. And we pull out contact data, which usually has phone numbers, sometimes email addresses. And we can push that into Salesforce, and that's like gold for salespeople. We can also get all sorts of other information that, you know, we can get in PDF form, and we mail it to them. It's successful for us because salespeople can get what they want pretty quickly. The next tool is ClickTools. This is a survey tool. My boss, VP of Operations, wanted it. We have 1 license. It's used by our administrator. We do it for external surveys, and we're actually doing an internal survey right now, asking people, how are they working with our internal ops groups. We've gotten a lot of great feedback from ClickTools, and interestingly enough, we became very close with their success manager, and she told us of an alternate use as a call scripting tool. And we haven't deployed this application yet, but if everyone's done a survey, usually sometimes there's branches depending upon how you answer. Well, call scripting is the same way. And so what we've done is we've set up a call script, you fill in the answers, and when you save it, it actually creates a record in Salesforce. And it's great for those kinds of things where people are starting something new and they're on the phone with a client. So it's really worked out well for us. Demand Tools is a data management tool. If you use Data Loader, it's a little bit more powerful than that. We use it, I would definitely say, on a monthly basis. I don't personally use it, but two administrators who work with me use it. It fixes sloppy data entry. It helps with data normalization, and it cleans up. It makes our data look more professional. I'm going to talk a little bit later about things that can happen to your data, as I'm sure you've experienced. We purchased Blue Wolf Integrator and Replicator not too long after we purchased our Salesforce license. We knew we were going to integrate with other systems, and it integrates right now with SAP and an internal reporting tool. And we really needed this. And usually we don't purchase things if it's coming from the admin team, but because it was in support of other projects, that's why we decided to purchase it. And we only have one license. It's a site license, not a user license. So the second thing that helped us make it successful with phase 2, we built some internal apps. And some of these are tabs. They're not, the whole application. You go up in the upper right-hand corner. And these are 4 of them. We've done more than this. Price discrepancy resolution app all works with our SAP integration. It was requested by the SAP Change Control Board, and if you know anything about project management, Change Control Board allows things to fall into scope or not fall into scope because of time, money, or resources. So what it does is we get a push from SAP every time an insertion order comes in. An insertion order is an order for the newspaper of what section you want to run, what day you want to run, if you want to move up front, if you're color, if you're black and white, and it has dollar information, like how much the client thinks the ad is supposed to cost. And if that doesn't match up with our rate card, it's marked as a price discrepancy. And as soon as the file is saved in SAP, it gets pushed over to Salesforce. So we get price discrepancy information plus account information. And why this is successful for us is it prevents incorrect billing, and because we have approval workflow in this, everything is time-stamped, and it works with our auditors. We're going through an audit right now, and thank God we have this. The gift application is something we launched just beginning in November. We do holiday gifts for our clients, and last year I noticed they pushed out this gigantic Excel document to the entire sales staff, and they said, fill in your client name, fill in your client address, and put in your client phone number, and then pick what gift you had. And I thought, why are we doing this? The sales staff has already typed in their contacts into Salesforce with their phone numbers. So why are we giving them even more work to do? And we did some calculations, and we're saving the salespeople anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour in their week, at the busiest time of the year for newspapers, Q4. What it also does for us is we can now keep track of what gifts are given to our clients year over year. Before it was just lost in Excel documents. We don't know, who got what. And if you move around accounts, you can, see what's going on. It's a related list off of our contacts. So basically, you just click on the contact, scroll down, click New Gift, and there it is. And as soon as they save it, it goes to a print fulfillment group, and we use views with statuses so that they can manage what's being fulfilled and what's not being fulfilled. The next thing we created is an account call planning app. It's really basic. It works off the account tab. Basically, you click New Account Call, and it creates a record. And it was requested by a sales vice president and human resources. This is a pretty integral thing that the salespeople have to use to manage their strategic accounts. We have a New York Times methodology on how we want to approach them and what kinds of questions they have to answer to figure out how are they going to get the business from this client. And one of the reasons why we created it is we wanted to track what was being created and when. It's used for performance management. And we wanted to bring up the quality of information that was in there, because some people in the past would say, oh yeah, I did my account calling information, and they've just filled in just a few little pieces of information. What's also helpful for this is vice presidents now can just go into Salesforce, type in the company name, go and click on the related list and see all the information, print it if they needed to take it with them, if they're going to prepare for a meeting with that client. And in the past, it was just pushed around via email saying, who has this? Do you have the right version? In Salesforce, we always have the most current version. All of you know what BCP means, or disaster recovery? Yeah, okay. We chose this fan icon. Actually, one of my colleagues chose one of this fan icon. You ever hear that expression, when the expletive deleted hits the fan? So that's why we chose it. And I thank Salesforce for putting that icon in. I'm sure they never thought it would be used like that. What it is a big Rolodex. And it contains all of the information of the ad salespeople, from their home addresses, home phone numbers, vacation addresses, personal cell phone information. And it's a way for us to contact, get information to contact each other in case we can't get into the New York Times building. Unfortunately, we've had a few incidents like that over the last few years. We haven't had to use it yet, knock wood, but it's there. All right, the third area that we look at in phase 2, and your advertising management staff won't tell you to do this, but you have to do it. There's 3 things that you've got to look at, and I look at the 3 legs of managing data. It's cleansing your data, monitoring your data, and knowing what's going on with sensitive information. So on the first leg, there's this production axiom. I have a production background, managing artwork and things like that, and it's called garbage in, garbage out. So basically, if you start with bad information being pushed into your system, whether it be from salespeople or from systems, you're only going to get garbage out. And it could make your company look very unprofessional. It can clog the system or even stop your salespeople from using the system because they just can't find the information that they need. For us, what we found is we had duplicates coming in from SAP of company names. So we put logic in the system to say, first look for a company number match. If you don't have a company number match, look for this other number match. If you don't find that, do an exact name match. So at least you're eliminating the kinds of duplicates coming in from a feed. The other thing is, salespeople are a unique bunch of characters, and I'm married to one, so I can say this. They sometimes like to create their own companies because they only want to see their stuff. They don't want to see anything else. And when we implemented Salesforce, we wanted everybody to see all of the activity going on with the company because we have different channels of selling. And so you've got to keep an eye on this. We allow them to create companies. I know some people's instances, they don't allow them to create companies. They're created by other systems. So you need to do training on this. You need to explain why this is important. And we go in proactively, and we'll merge companies if they create dupes. In what we found, other things with companies is sometimes they'll create like IBM, or they'll create like international business machines. They'll spell it out. So you have to be kind of proactive. So they may do a search on IBM, but not do a search on international business machines, and then create it, and then you'll have 2 there. And this is the kind of thing that it's hard to do automated searching on, so you kind of have to know it and do it manually. Other things that I found is, like, my company is the New York Times. The is part of our name. But in the system, sometimes people would just type New York Times. And usually if you do, a wildcard search, you'll grab this stuff, but not everybody does wildcard searches, and they just do some real basic stuff. So this is something to think about, too. What I've also noticed that's unique in the media industry, the way many clients work, they work with an agency to represent them, and we tend to deal with the agency. And salespeople like to remember the agency, so they'll create it like IBM/Mindshare, Mindshare being the agency. And then they pull all the Mindshare contacts and all of the IBM contacts into one record, and it's a mess. But then, so Jane Doe, who works at Mindshare, who has the IBM account, can also be Jane Doe in Mindshare working on, 5 other accounts. What we usually do is we rip these apart. We put the Mindshare people with the Mindshare. We keep the IBM, and we change the name. Try to do a lot of education about this. We do a lot of training. We still give documentation. You can do some validation rules on this. Sometimes it can be very difficult depending upon, how companies are spelled. Like you'll get things, there are companies with slashes in there. There are companies with asterisks in their names. So it can be a little bit difficult to manage. Contacts are probably as difficult as companies, at least that we've found. We recently did a search in preparation for this gift application we were running. And I had one of my colleagues here. I said, just do a search and find out, how many lowercase contacts. So if you had like Jane Doe, it'd be lowercase Jane Doe. And I don't think, 80,000 records, Charlie, in the system for contacts? Yeah. We came up with 5,000 contacts that the sales staff have typed in lowercase. So if you're doing an email blast, and then you've got dear, and then, you insert their first name, and it says Jane in lowercase, you're going to look so unprofessional, and you don't want your company to look like that. Or if you're doing an extract for Excel, and it'll be, a mail campaign or something, you don't want to do that. So I would advise you to check for things like that, pull it out, clean it up, push it back in. There are sometimes missing or incomplete postal codes. A lot of times we'll get the city, sometimes the city and the state. U.S. Post Office does put out this information. The zip codes do change. So we periodically go in, we'll pull out things that have missing data, we'll update it, and then push it back into the system. So if we are doing a mailing, at least we have more information than what the salespeople put in, and it's normalized. So we do a mailing, it's exactly the way the U.S. Post Office expects it. What I also notice unique about salespeople with contacts is if they want to get rid of a contact, we don't allow them to delete contacts or companies. We give an administrative status, and they'll say delete contact in the first or last name. And if I guarantee now, if I do a search today, and if we cleaned up last week, I'll find delete contacts in first or last names. What I've also noticed, particularly in our telesales group, is they'll put pronunciation guides in the first or last name. And so my example here is DPAC, and they'll write D-PAC. And if you're doing a mailing, a mass email or a mailing, that's embarrassing. We just did one a couple of weeks ago, and I pulled out 3,000 contacts, and I had to give it off to somebody. I said, let me just do a search on this. And I did a search on parentheses, and I found a lot. So these are the things. You really need to think about data. You've got to clean it on a regular basis. You've got to normalize it on a regular basis. And depending upon how many records you have and how data entry is done at your company, you may need to do it yearly. You may need to do it quarterly, monthly, or even daily. We do certain things that I didn't necessarily mention here, certain kinds of records we look at every day. They're not, we don't get too much of a volume that we do it, but other things we just do on, say, a quarterly basis. Another thing that we do with monitoring, with data is monitoring it. Every time we launch a new app, we put together what I call my adoption dashboard, and that's basically to see, is it being used? Is it being used in the way that we expected? We set policies on what to do with the data, how to use it. We do training. We set validation rules. But sales staff sometimes can do whatever they want. Some of the dashboards we've created are for our SAP feed coming in, and it's particularly important if you have a feed coming in from another system. You want to see if there's spikes. You want to see if there's 0 records being created, because either one could signal a problem with the other system or with our system. And you'll need to be able to address that. And, I go in and, when we launch, I refresh, a couple times throughout the whole day. You need to know what's normal, what's not normal. If you have lots of records being created by the staff, we also create dashboards. I have an overall dashboard sort of looking at the whole system just to see what's being done where. I actually have one for the IHT and one for the New York Times, so I can sort of split the differences on that. We also have a dashboard for status changes and pending approvals. So it's particularly important for us at month end when we have to do billing adjustments. So the last week, we are watching that constantly. And the operations group, who has to get the adjustments in, they're watching it too. Because sometimes the sales staff, no matter how much you train them, will go, oh, I forgot how to do the adjustments. Just teach me again. The third leg of looking at data, it's probably the most important, I think, is you've got to know what is sensitive data and what you can and can't put in your system. Credit card numbers should never be in your system, ever. There is this group called the Payment Card Industry Group. People like Discover, MasterCard, Visa, American Express, all the major credit card companies are in there. And it's a governing body, and they've put together rules to protect consumers about their private sensitive data. If you have a credit card number in your system and they get wind of it, they can shut down credit card processing at your entire corporation. So this is a really important thing. I've put down the website address. If you're concerned about this, write it down. There's a lot of stuff at this website, and it's pretty important. Social Security numbers are governed by various federal laws. There's too numerous here. There may be even state laws. But some companies can keep that kind of information. Some can't. So educate yourself. Find out what you've got to do. When we launched the IHT, my counterpart project manager in France told me of this organization called CNIL, and it's a long French acronym that I'm not going to pronounce, but there it is. It's all in French if you go to that website. But basically, they have rules about what kind of contact information you can keep. We actually have a different page layout for our IHT staff on contacts. It's a smaller subset of data than we have for the New York sales staff. We can only also keep contact data for a certain amount of time. And if it hasn't been active, we have to purge it out of the system after a certain amount of time. Other countries, like Belgium has different laws. The EU is starting to come together with some more laws. Brazil, Japan. So if you're doing a global implementation, you need to find out this information. Your legal team might be able to help you. So to sum it all up, for us at the New York Times, I find this at most companies, things work better if they're coming top down. So if you're excited about something, talk to senior management. They really need to run with this and tell staff that this is important. It's a goal of the department. It's in your performance appraisal goals. You need to do it. We also do apps when they're tied to auditing or regulatory things. So when we do approvals, those things have to get done, and we always have easy compliance with that. And it also needs to serve the business needs. Another thing I think you should think about is the thrifty and creative use of third-party apps. We use ClickTools a couple of different ways. We use Hoovers, and we only have our administrators. Now, we would have loved to have purchased more licenses, and hopefully when the economy gets a little bit better, maybe we can. But maybe you bring it into the organization initially and just give it to your admins who can work with the sales staff on this stuff and get the information out. And at least you get your feet wet with understanding how to use an application. And then you need to do a methodical review and a cyclical review of your data. And this is just never ending. Do dashboards, do scheduled reports. I get scheduled reports at least once a week. I have them sometimes going out to different people too. You need to keep in touch with your CFO, your IT security people, and perhaps your legal team to ensure that you're meeting with various laws. Now, I would like to give you another perspective. I'm going to introduce Paul Ide from Sprint. Paul has worked at Sprint for 15 years and is currently manager of program management and business analysis. Paul has been in a variety of sales and sales support roles for Sprint in the last 8 years, focusing on systems and tools. Paul was part of the team to recommend Salesforce.com to recently merged Sprint Nextel. Paul oversees all business tools in Sprint Nextel and is concentrated on reducing the number of applications by moving them into Salesforce.com to create new tools in Salesforce, saving millions of dollars on IT development.
Thanks, Tara. The New York Times is one of my favorite things to do on Sunday. We all probably have to travel on Sunday. So I like to grab the New York Times, read it leisurely throughout the plane. But since I don't travel on Sunday, and this year Dreamforce wasn't on a Sunday, I just used my Sprint phone to read the New York Times, and I do every day. So thanks, Tara. I'd like to thank Mike for inviting me as a speaker. It's my third year as a speaker. First year at 7:30 in the morning, So I agreed to be a speaker, and then I found out it was 7:30, and then it's too late to back out. So, yeah, he was nice about it. So if you give me a couple raffle tickets, we'll all be even. So my name is Paul Ide. I do work for Sprint Nextel. And you probably all heard of Sprint and see our ads on TV. We are the main sponsor of NASCAR. We are the telecommunications sponsor for the NFL, so you probably see our ads all over on TV. You probably see a recent one with Flavor Flav. I supported that. I have a picture with Flavor Flav that I'll send to you through Facebook or through Twitter if you want that later. I'm happy to do that. What you didn't know about Sprint, we're the largest or the third largest telecommunications wireless provider. We are also one of the biggest carriers for the internet. So your internet data going out to the cloud, that's on the Sprint backbone, the Sprint data network. So we're pretty proud of that. We have 60,000 employees. It's been an interesting few years for us. So we merged with Nextel. We are the third largest wireless company, and Nextel is about the fourth. Those two companies decided to get together. That's what kind of brought me to the Salesforce world. I had a couple sales, operational type roles, and when we're coming together as a company, trying to move quickly, we decided to adopt and go. So we picked the best of one tool, wherever it was, Sprint, Nextel. We adopted that tool and went. The easiest and the best decision we made was going with Salesforce.com. We had about 5 CRM tools, and I'll show you a cool slide in a few minutes about how we were doing things. We had different silos and different groups, and then two companies coming together. We were the first tool to come together, not to downgrade our IT group, but our combined intranet. We brought up Salesforce.com in about 6 months, and our combined intranet was 18 months later. So it was pretty interesting to say, oh, did you see that company news? No, I'm on the other intranet. I didn't see it yet. So they were posting things. So it was really pretty great. And our 6-month time frame was, come on in. I think I saw that guy at the bar last night, so it's okay. So our combined tool was 6 months long, but we actually delayed that because we merged in August, and then it was about the holiday season, and we were ready to roll out, but we thought people were on vacation and taking holidays, so there was a better decision to move it out. So about 4 months, we were up and running. So that brings the context from taking the CRM Basics tool, and that's what we bought, and that's what we paid for, and the ROI is great on that. But throughout the presentation, I'll show you a couple things that really paid back for our Salesforce.com application. To level set, we needed a funnel tool, and Salesforce.com was a clear winner on that. A couple of my favorite sayings: less is more, and data quality over data quantity. We can do a lot with the tool, or we can put a lot into it, but start with the basics, solve your problems, don't overthink it. We can do anything with the tool. I'm not super technical. I try to set the vision with the tool, and I can track, customers, dogs, name, birthdays, things like that. But as a salesperson, we try to put the thought on the salesperson of using the tool. Is that good information, or is that information that's going to kind of distract them over and over again? So if marketing, finance wants it, the question was, is it going to benefit sales? Systems and tools are easy. Sprint processes are hard, and probably the same way at your company too. I can make the tool sing and dance and do anything, make coffee in the morning. Processes are hard. We have a rule for every business channel, then we have an exception to the rule, then we have an exception for each business group. So the processes are the hard parts. You want to level set that tools are easy, do what you can with the tool, work around the processes or improve the processes with the tool. One of the key things is to really think about your users, and probably all of you are using for the sales CRM tool, the sales cloud. And when you do that, what's their biggest pain point? Double entry. Probably everyone's tracking their wins and their losses, but then they get a weekly request from their management to say, what's your big deals today? What are you closing today? Or how's this product doing? Because we just launched that. The double entry is frustrating to sales, or they're sending out an email. What you can do with Salesforce.com is enter the data once and then reconfigure the data through a report or through a dashboard, or send that out to someone else that really needs the information. This is my funky slide with the tombstones. We actually did a sales operations review in October, so it was kind of a holiday theme. I asked Mike if it was okay. It was a little hokey, but these are tools that we put to bed. We actually killed these tools and put them all into Salesforce.com. There's 4 or 5 of those tools are CRM tools. You can see Siebel up there. We had a homegrown tool. We had Siebel. We had one tool called Bob, business operations or benefits or something. It was literally one person, one IT guy, probably lived in his parents' basement, and just did all the configuration, and was a great guy. And that small sales channel was really worried about leaving. Like, we get data cleansing, we get real-time support. I'm like, well, yeah, you got one guy. Now you have a team. Now you have the industry best practices to use Salesforce.com. So these are all tools that we sunsetted. We put into Salesforce.com. The EBC tool up there, that's our Executive Briefing Center. So we bring customers in. We give them this great demo, little mini Dreamforce for one day. So we show them a video, and they can touch and feel the phones. A pretty nice thing. If you're a Sprint customer, you can come in and we'll close a deal for our large customers. The funny thing is that's $1 million tool. Literally spent $1 million buying, purchasing, and supporting that tool. And we rolled the entire tool into Salesforce.com for the price of 4 or 5 licenses, that small team. And the best thing about that is now the data is shared with the rest of the account data. So they have their own standalone tool. We rolled it in. Not only did we save money, but now we run reports on who's come to our executive briefing centers and then what sales we had after that, justifying their business. So they're real happy with our Salesforce implementation. And that's one of the examples where we took just a CRM tool and wins, losses, contacts, and we kind of moved it to the next level. So in addition to sunsetting tools, these are new things that we did. Not as dynamic as the tombstones, but on the left is some of the integrations. So we're pulling in data, pushing and pulling data. The interesting thing is, it took us a while for Sprint.com. You go to Sprint.com, you fill out, I'd like more information, I want a salesperson to call me. We had to fight with IT to do that. Understand the concept of the cloud, understand why we'd want to do this, talk about security, and push that data. But now we have real-time data from Sprint.com to our salesperson that is virtually instant for them to follow up with the customer and give them that real-time experience. The left-hand side, the font gets smaller, I apologize, but those are new tools. And that's one of the main themes of my presentation is these are new tools that we built from the ground up. So there was a problem, and we needed to track something, we needed to build it. This is money that we diverted from IT and moved into Salesforce.com. The first one on the list is Silver Bullet lead routing. Our retail stores, they were going to buy a tool that routed leads or took a lead list, and they could call customers. We actually had a friend, casual conversation, I'm like, Salesforce can do that. So they had budget, they had money, but we rebuilt that, and really it's just fields and data. We loaded up the data, and we pushed that to our stores, but they budgeted, literally millions of dollars. Like, we'll buy this tool, we'll have a standalone, another silo tool that doesn't touch anything else, but instead we use Salesforce.com for that. All these tools were, in one level or another, a problem statement that someone had at Sprint or a company, the Global Advocacy. Midway down was a tool that a small little group that works on industry standards. So we use a wireless standard for our technology. We want to replicate that industry-wide, and that would lower the cost of our chips and help us roam in other companies. So they were using spreadsheets and thinking about buying a tool. They said, hey, can we get 4 or 5 licenses? And again, a lot of it was just fields and data. We took their Excel spreadsheets, loaded it up, and made sure that they didn't have to buy an external tool. And hopefully one day we can kind of share that data better throughout the company. Here's a little deep dive of the risk assessment tool that we had. So probably all of you are using Salesforce.com to track your wins, your losses, your sales funnel. When the economy tanked late in 2008, we were realizing our customers were leaving. Companies were laying off their employees, and so we were having customers that were just leaving us. The corporation paid for their phone, and now they're leaving us. Do they get a new phone? Do they transfer companies? And so we decided to forecast our losses, if you will, companies that are leaving. And the great thing about this was we were ahead of the process. We were ahead of the communication plan. So pretty simple form. I actually built this, very proud of this. I'm not super technical, but I can build a field here and there. And when I talk to the sales management, what do you want to do? What do you want to track? It turns out to be, the account. What type of losses are we going to have? Is it on the Sprint side or the Nextel side? Why are we losing it? What's the date? How many units are we going to lose? And I built this, and so they were, a little bit of chaos. How sales management is. And they were, can we do this? Can we do this? I'm like, yeah, we can do this. And the funny thing is, not only did I beat the process, so the process was about 80 or 90% defined. By the time I built this, I'm waiting on them to make final decisions on field names and layout, how many number of fields. I also beat the communication plan. So this took about 4 or 5 days to build for me. By that time, I'm ready, I'm done, but we didn't finalize the process, and we didn't finalize the communication plan. So this tool was built in 4 days. We had to wait probably 10 days for our normal communication plan to take effect. So the great thing about Salesforce is we can do things rapidly. We can not think about what is just the sales funnel. We can move it into a new environment, and you're probably going to be ahead of the processes and the timelines that other groups kind of impose on you. A couple of the key takeaways. Try to find, the low-hanging fruit. What was easy? If there's an Excel spreadsheet that's being circulated through your company, my favorite saying in 2007 was, I'm the spreadsheet terminator. You know what? If there's a spreadsheet, it's fields and data, and that's what Salesforce is, on a high level. So if they're sending that around, you can rebuild that in Salesforce.com. Step up and be a hero. What's your biggest problem at the company? That's what I try to think about. Obviously, customers leaving Sprint was a big problem for us. And what I thought about was, how can I help? So the losses, instead of just tracking our wins, we put in losses. We can do so much in Salesforce.com, create a tab, creating new fields and functionality, create a related list. We've done that so often that it's really become the standard now for our company to kind of look to Salesforce.com as the leader of solving business problems. The second bullet there, that we are faster than supply chains, one of the favorite things that dawned on me. Obviously, we're faster than the internal IT group. When I talk to my IT group about integrations or having a project together, they want to charge back time, or you have to get certain people involved and jump through so many hoops. So obviously, Salesforce.com, building a tool, standalone or Salesforce.com, it's much easier and faster to go Salesforce.com. But I realized recently we are faster than the supply chain process. If there was a perfect off-the-shelf tool that I wanted to use, that, I don't know about your company, but for me that would take probably 30 days to get some type of vendor agreement, some type of approval, some signatures. I can do that faster. So we're not only faster than IT, we're faster than the supply chain process to jump through those hoops. So we can bring things up. Even if there was a perfect tool, we do things, in literally days rather than waiting for weeks and weeks to IT build it, or even a month or so to have the right documents in order to have a vendor agreement. Target something that everyone can relate to. My main customers are sales. They are sending Excel files over and over again, back and forth. Everyone has a funnel, but then they get their, what problems, what's your win report? Sales are up this month, or how's this product doing? Stop sending Excel files. What's their biggest problem? And we can solve that through Salesforce.com. And one thing I also dawned on me, and you saw that long list in the small font of 20 or 30 tools that are outside of the basis of the sales funnel. Replacing an existing tool or form. So we have a lot of standalone forms. In the olden days, a director had an idea, they had budget, and the economy is better. They just built a tool or bought a tool. Replacing those tools and forms, it actually turns out to be pretty easy, because if they're using the tool now, you replace it in Salesforce.com, you don't have a lot of training. They know Salesforce.com and they know the tool. So some of the pushback, we're like, let's put this in Salesforce.com, you get the same password, you get related, you get pre-population of some of the data. Well, we have to train them. Actually, the training turns out to be pretty easy, because all you do is just move that data into Salesforce.com. They know the data. They know what they're doing. We don't have any training. We do like an FAQ guide, but we don't have like a big rollout, a big training, a big shutdown in the systems. You can really replace tools and rebuild them in Salesforce.com very, very easily. So if you have a standalone tool that's just data and fields and forms, rebuild that in Salesforce.com. And actually, your training windows will shorten easily. Think mobily. Obviously, I work for Sprint, so I'm always thinking about mobile and the wireless capabilities. My salespeople, when we trained them, the number one question is, can I get this on my BlackBerry? Can I get this on my Trio? Can I get this on my iPhone? You can do all that with Salesforce.com. And probably everyone here has been remote. Who hasn't checked their Facebook or their Twitter or ESPN, their email on remotely? And the best thing about working mobily, they don't have to use it, but they no longer have an excuse. I was out of the office, I was traveling, I was on vacation. They can update Salesforce.com, the regular CRM Salesforce. They can update their wins, their losses. But they can also, any application that we build in Salesforce.com can be pushed mobily. And I think that's my presentation. So turn it back to Mike for questions and answers.
So we have 10 minutes left. Can I ask, does anyone have any questions that they would like to put to our panel? Just 1 second. Yeah. There we go. 1, 2. It won't be recorded. That's why.
So when you're looking to buy apps, what was the methodology of finding the best one to buy? So you've crafted or framed the problem set. How did you actually find the applications?
Well, a lot of it for Sprint was the speed. Cost obviously is going to play a role too, but the speed to adopt and goal was our theory. What works, what doesn't work. So a quick evaluation. The cost was secondary to how quickly can we bring this up, because we were always going to have the challenges of the users and the challenges of adoption, so we didn't want to have a longer timeline. So speed was actually very paramount for our decisions.
You can also think about is ask for trials. A lot of them will give you like a 30-day free trial, and sometimes they're pretty complicated. You'll need their help, but do it. You'll get an understanding. Will it work for your organization?
It's mostly for Tara, because you talked about data cleanup and keeping data, as pristine as you can. Which group among New York Times actually does the heavy lifting? Who does the work?
It's the Salesforce.com administrative group.
So it's your IT.
No, it's
Okay.
within the advertising department. We do have an IT resource, but I really consider them part of advertising.
Great, thank you.
I love the idea of getting rid of Access and Excel. For our company, I know one of the challenges is some of those Excel sheets extend to beyond the sales and marketing and customer service organization, and those other departments don't tend to have Salesforce. So can you talk me through whether at your organizations you've had to make some of those decisions about getting other parts of your organization on Salesforce so that they can participate and you can really get rid of the lion's share of those Excel sheets?
Yeah, that's actually one thing that I probably should add in my slide that I'm very proud of. So we have the entire, we bought a sales funnel tool. The thought was we need to track our wins and losses, but we extended that. So we have the whole 360 view of our customer, from leads to sales tracking to orders to service. Now it's not a full 360 where everything's shaded in, but we're engaging our care groups. Instead of having a standalone tool, it was up on the slide with the tombstone called SET. It was a sales engagement tool, separate password, log in, retype what's my name, what's my customer, and what do you want care to do. We rebuilt that in Salesforce.com. So I hit the sales care request. Now it pre-populates my name, it pre-populates the customer information, and then I have 4, 5, 6 fields to fill out. So it's great to extend that. Anything that sales does, my goal is to do it at Salesforce.com. We're not 100% there yet, but we have a lot of the tools that they're using. They're using it through Salesforce.com. But great question for us to push that out to sales. We gave them just a few licenses to kind of check the data and route the data. They do their work in other back-end systems, but the communication point is via Salesforce.com.
What you can also do is think about schedule reports and depending on what you want, sometimes that will work, sometimes it won't, but it's a way to push out Salesforce information to non-Salesforce users.
Yeah, just a question about integration. With what other applications did you integrate Salesforce with in terms of product catalog or ordering systems? Can you explain a little bit on that?
Yeah, we, one of my challenges working with our traditional IT shop, so we've eliminated, and you saw on the slide, we eliminated about 12 or 15 tools. Salesforce is a hub, and we push and we pull data. The challenge is IT really, after so many years and cloud computing kind of level set that this is good, their questions are about security. Why isn't this behind our firewall? And my question is always, you think our firewall is better than an industry standard and all this? So bringing that around is a challenge, but if you can kind of target the low-hanging fruit or small tools that are easily adoptable or easily, we see the big picture. IT is always going to fight us on that, but we do push and pull data from about 6 or 7 different tools, and hopefully 2010 for me becomes a year of integrations because the Salesforce API really pushes data out or pulls it in so easily.
So quick question. I saw on the slide that one of you folks used Siebel for marketing.
Yep.
So the question was, have you thought about possibly moving that into Salesforce or looking at an app? Or why did you tend to keep it in Siebel from a marketing perspective?
So we, probably like your company, so we have these different silos and budgets and things like that. So the Siebel, we bought a Siebel marketing tool. There's actually a project going on right now where we're pushing that Siebel data into the cloud and then pulling it into Salesforce.com. Right now, it's a manual process, so they kind of offload it to a common website, a common FTP site. We have a project going on with IT, and that's one of the challenges I just mentioned, that, let me explain how secure this data is. Let me explain how it works. We do have Siebel Marketing. That's a legacy tool. It costs a lot of money to kind of, have dual systems or rebuild it. But I'm pretty happy that we're actually, instead of doing a manual process of they're exporting their data, dropping an FTP file, my team picks it up and reloads it, we're actually going to do an API and an automatic push, so more real-time data push between the two. But we're kind of handcuffed sometimes between legacy decisions that were made before we actually merged together.
Okay, we have one last question, I think.
Do either of you use a third-party email tool for marketing campaigns?
We don't. We monitor how much mass email we do, and it's steadily going up. We do training periodically. We decided not to purchase anything because we haven't hit the Salesforce.com limits that they set for your orgs. But there are some great tools out there. We get some frustrations of the limitation per day to say, okay, you've only have this amount per day, and then the rest will go out the following days. And so we tell that when they're planning a big campaign. But right now, I just can't cost justify it.
We don't either. We can use a regular Salesforce application, and the interesting thing is, sales, and they sit by me and they're my friends, but they've emailed the wrong group of people with the wrong. So we are a little hesitant to kind of roll that out and say, oh, email everyone. They've figured out it's pretty easy to grab a document or create a template out there. So the smart ones are doing it, but we've, without advertising it, we've had those problems. There's also, do not call lists and do not contact, so that's probably a game I don't want to be involved in.
Yeah, there's canned spam compliancy. You really have to educate yourself on how you want to do that. Salesforce is not an email tool. It's a CRM tool. And there are other vendors that do this wonderfully.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. So I would like to thank our speakers. And everyone's put a lot of effort into the show, and I'm well aware of how much is involved in this. So thank you very much for your patience over the last few weeks putting this together. I just put a few takeaways on the screen here. I think you can see that this kind of summarizes the sort of things that we've been discussing about here, about where to get ideas from to move forward with an application, and how to use the experience that's been gained through phase 1 and move it into phase 2. So that's the formal end of our presentation right now, and so thank you very much.